Welcome to Integrated Wellbeing YouTube channel and podcast for people in grief and the professionals who serve them. We provide education, inspiration, and practical tools by interviewing those bereaved by loss, mental health professionals, and grief specialists. Integrated Wellbeing Institute seeks to awaken the griever to their inner peace through the guidance of their body. And today we have a most unusual situation here because I would like to introduce you to Jessica Halvorsen. Jessica Halvorsen is the owner of Mom Elevated, and she helps moms who are entrepreneurials manage all the moving parts and pieces that are required when you're in that position. And Jessica also serves as the virtual assistant for Integrated Wellbeing Institute. She is the creativity behind our social media, our newsletter, and posts all of our antidotes to anxiety as well as these interviews. So welcome, Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, this is just great. So the reason I invited Jessica to do this is that on September the 8th, Integrated Wellbeing Institute is launching its fall certification program. It's 3 months long, and it is for an audience of licensed psychotherapists, psychologists, counselors, and social workers. So Jessica has some questions to ask me, and we're just going to talk together because she's been on this journey with me since what year, Jessica? Was it March?
2022?
That's what I thought. Okay, April of 22 was what I think I had noted. Okay, great. Well, take it away. I'm all yours.
I'm super excited. This is kind of fun for me. I like interviewing as it is, but this is a whole new ball game for me. So I'm super excited to dive in and see kind of what your answers are going to be to some of these questions, actually. So,
Good. Okay.
Georgena, how did the Integrated Wellbeing Institute begin?
Uh, it was very interesting. In 2020, some coaches came to me and said, "Would you teach us to do what you do?" And I had already, in March of that year, been guided to take a program to start putting everything together that I did. And at that time, it was an 11 module program. And I also hired a coach at that time who said, "I don't care if it's not perfect, just do it." And so this person helped me with the pricing and helped me then to say, okay, now your company is currently beyond your loss. And it was a thriving private practice at that time, Jessica, even in the midst of COVID. It really expanded, actually, as so many of our licensed professionals know. So he came up with the name Integrated Wellbeing Institute. And given who I am, knowing that every single one of us is born with well-being within, it was like, oh, this is interesting. It's already there, but that integrated peace, that centeredness gets covered up with life. And so let's find the well-being, let's integrate it. And yes, we'll have an institute that provides education and certification. So what happened is that in 2020, the program was certified by the International Coaching Federation. And I was over the moon because I just thought, wow, this is really great. And as time went along, it was like, oh, is this really my audience?
Yep.
So that's how the Institute got started.
I think that's kind of incredible. Well, and you said beyond your loss. Isn't that what you had before you moved into
Yes.
Integrated Wellbeing
Hmm.
Institute?
Hmm.
Okay. So that
Yes.
it very much kind of just flows nicely into one another. I feel like that's beautiful.
Thank
What
you.
prompted you to continue to enroll and certify more professionals after 2020?
I realized that I was getting calls from people that said, my grief therapist doesn't know what to do with me. And it broke my heart for that person. It also broke my heart for the licensed professional. Because what I've since learned from my colleagues who are licensed professionals is that grief education in their education is optional. And so here you are, a very well intended, very skilled professional who shows up, hangs out your shingle, and meets the needs of those people who come to see you until there's a mother whose child has died by suicide, until there is the tragic, sudden death that just shatters your life. And so it's like the things that are basic and maybe even seem like they're useful aren't. They're
Yeah.
hurtful and confusing to the person grieving.
Well, and it's I would assume it's not that the licensed professional doesn't want to help. It's that
That's
they
right.
don't know how or
Mm-hmm.
the best method, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't want to steer them in the wrong direction.
Exactly.
So I
Mm-hmm.
think, yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's
And
wonderful.
so, yeah, so that's why it's like I could have just certified those few coaches and known that the work was out there and it made a difference. However, there was something greater that was pulling at my heart. And then when I got these calls, it's like, okay, we're all in this together. We all have wonderful hearts and really good educations. So let's put that together and have 1 plus 1 be more than 2.
Oh, that's amazing. Do you find, can I ask, this is
Yes.
not part of the question,
Yeah.
but do you find that a lot of times some of the like professionals are so in their head that they do have a hard time sometimes learning the body-mind connection piece of it where it
Oh,
is?
yes, yes. And I'm really, really pleased now that mind, body is now out in the mainstream vernacular.
Yeah.
And so, because 20 years ago, it wasn't. When
Yeah.
I started doing this 25 years ago, it was a body based approach that allowed me to heal after my son died by suicide. And that's the only thing I've known and offered to hundreds and hundreds of clients. And so right now, I'm just so pleased that there's so many opportunities for training out there in somatics. So people begin to get the whole connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been, I love learning about it. So I can imagine. What is the uniqueness of this model for licensed psychologists, counselors, and social workers?
The uniqueness is its foundation is the Rubenfeld synergy method. And Ilana Rubenfeld was studying to be a conductor at Juilliard School of Music. And she developed these painful back spasms as she was holding her arms up. Well, it's pretty hard to be a conductor when you can't move your arms.
Yeah.
So she found a teacher of Alexander. And when she laid down on the table, Judith Leibowitz put her hands on Alana's head, and Alana burst into tears. And she had no idea. where that came from. And so in that very first session, Ilana developed 6 ahas. One of them being, you don't have to know what's going on to have something major transform you. Then she went on to work with Judith and become a certified Alexander teacher. She then was invited to come to Esalen and study with Moshe Feldenkrais. And Moshe did the mind body. She also studied with Charlotte Selver in sensory awareness. So she had the awareness, she had the movement, she had the body, and then she met Fritz and Laura Perls at Esalen. And she learned the talk of Gestalt therapy. And Rubenfeld Synergy was born when Fritz said, Ilana, come up here and do that thing you do while I am talking to this person in the hot seat. And it was just transformative. She could feel that when he said something to a person, if it was true, their body melted. If it was not true, the body tensed. And in the past, William Reich had started this many, many years ago. And in fact, he was even put in prison for his techniques and treatments. And what he said is, we all armor ourselves to protect ourselves. Where Ilana said, when we touch and listen, it melts. And that's one of the things about Rubenfeld Synergy. Now, people may be saying, well, I'm not licensed to touch, Georgena. I absolutely know that. That's why the program is a 3-month certification program that teaches you to do this online with clients, and they self-touch. And the beauty of that, Jessica, it's like there's no shortcut there.
Yeah.
It's deepening even more their awareness of themselves.
That's what I was going to say. Do you suppose that it also helps those that are getting certified, helps them before they can then help others?
Yes, absolutely, because the whole purpose of the program is self-care.
Yeah.
My intention of doing this is to support licensed professionals so they don't burn out. So that in the midst of a session, they can recognize, whoops, there goes my energy. I will recalibrate, and in the 3-month program, we'll discern what are the 3 things that can bring them back into balance so they're restored.
I love that.
Yeah. So right in the middle of the session, they will be taking care of themselves. Because one of the things that's different about this model is Ilana taught us how to shuttle out to our client and then come back to ourselves and notice what's going on. And she also had 18 principles in her book, The Listening Hand. And this program is based on 5 of them. The first one is awareness is the first key to change. Second, change happens only in the present moment. The body tells the truth. Its language is metaphor, and the body is the sanctuary of the soul. So the beauty of this is you don't have to have a religious or spiritual or anything like that background. It just allows the well-being that's within to open up and shine out.
That's beautiful. I think that's so powerful too when you are working with those that have such, you always say, deep grief and
Yes.
raw grief and just so many different facets of that. It can be, I imagine, I don't know firsthand, but I imagine it can be very hard to not hold on to some of that yourself.
It is. And that's why I've got a self-care wheel where people then can choose, this is what I'm doing now, and this is what I want to do more of. I'm so fortunate because I live a mile from my office. So I walk to my office, and then I walk home and I
Oh,
leave what's happened at the office at the office.
I think that's wonderful. Oh, I think that
Mhm.
brings us really easily into the next question too. What is your vision for the grief awareness assessment?
Ah, the grief awareness assessment is really the crown, the gem, the center stone of this program. Because I had a mother recently say to me, I wish I had a map through grief.
Mhm.
The grief awareness assessment is the map. And what it is it's a rating scale of physical, cognitive, emotional, and behavioral reactions. And I say reactions because in raw grief, everything just comes up for many, many people. Now, there are those people that are certainly numb and they don't feel anything. And
Yeah.
so, we are very, very sensitive to the different types of grievers. And then the other thing that's on there that is so that allows then the licensed professional to dive deeper into what are the top three. So we've got physical, for instance, we may have fatigue, we may have headaches, we may have insomnia. Well, I'm not an expert in sleep. However, that seems to be for many people a big issue. So we
Yeah.
simply talk about sleep hygiene, and then these professionals have their own set of referral sources that they use. And so then we get to the section. So that's emotion too. And that's all over the map because for some people it's fear. If this could happen, what's going to happen next? No, I'm so angry that he didn't ask for help and went off and died by suicide. That's a common theme. And I'm so anxious all the time now.
Yeah.
So we look at those, and that gives us as professionals a map of what to look for because they've identified it themselves. And
Uh,
then the next section are 10 beliefs about grief. Because you see, Jessica, some people believe that if you take care of yourself, which is essential to do in the midst of all of this, it's selfish.
yeah.
It's dishonoring the person who's died. So we teach those opportunities for us to look at what are these 10 beliefs are then woven into the program because beliefs matter, as we all know, and are wired in our brain. And what do we do when they're an impediment to moving forward?
Yeah.
And then the last section is my favorite. It's called Diving Deep. And one of the questions there is, where do you experience grief in your body? And there have been maybe two people since 2010 that have answered, I don't know.
Oh, wow.
Everybody will say, you know, have an answer. Tense shoulders, my stomach hurts all the time, my throat feels choked. Whatever it is, that's a clue too. And so that's why the grief awareness assessment is something that I'm looking forward to having approved and by the American Psychological Association so that we can put this out. Now, there's other assessments out there. What I appreciate about this one is in the diving deep questions, people give you what they want their life to be like.
Mm.
You could say to somebody, what would you like, to have your life look like? They can't even think that way. But somehow, when it comes up and they can type the answer in on the assessment, most of the time, I would say 99% of the time, people have an answer to that. And that's my guide as the grief therapist I am, and to let me know, okay, this is where we're going.
That's beautiful. It really
Mhm.
is. It really is a powerful assessment. I've read through it a few times, so I think it's amazing. And yeah, I don't think you can even do it justice just by talking about it. I think
No.
seeing it
Hmm.
whole different
Hmm.
thing, and
Hmm.
seeing it in action.
Yes.
What would you say is a requirement or a commitment from those psychologists, counselors, social workers that want to take this certification course? What do you think is like a requirement or commitment that you ask of them while they're participating?
To show up, to be open-minded, to ask questions, to be uncomfortable, because this is new. This is very, very new. And for us to build the community and for them to leave then with their own unique way of working with people grieving through the wisdom of the body.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So great.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think that's
And
I also love that you say their unique way.
yes, because they will discover that. And then, Jessica, what I've built into the program is a membership program for 3 years. So people come, there's a small fee, and people come once a month if they choose to a Zoom meeting where they can ask questions and get mentoring. They can discuss it because here is all this wealth of information on the call. Everyone is licensed. And then and then I'll present new information about the body-mind connection.
I love that. So with that, I know we talked about it a little bit, but why is the body-mind connection important for moving through grief?
Because you can't think your way through grief. It lives in the body. And that's the simple answer to this. And I believe when people really get that at the heart and cellular level, it's like, okay. After my son Reed died, I was floundering. Yes, my Rubenfeld synergy training brought me back into my body because my experience as a grief therapist all these years has shown that people leave their body. I remember putting my hands on a woman's hip and I said, "What are you noticing?" And she said, "Nothing." I rarely share what is my experience, but in that moment I said, "Me too." It feels like all there is mist between my hands. She wasn't in her body.
Wow.
So that's why it's so important for people to come back into their body and then be able to learn the language of metaphor.
That's, I think, a very unique part of the certification program are the body metaphor maps that you've created that they'll have access to. I think those are phenomenal, and it's really great for recognizing different,
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, different aspects of your body that you can
Right,
identify with.
right. Like the body. Who or what is the pain in your neck?
Yeah.
Okay. And your feet. What is different about your right foot and your left foot? Oh, if my left foot is heavier, what's left for me to let go of? There's all these different interpretations. And Ilana's beautiful training was based on talk of Gestalt therapy, the touch of Alexander and Feldenkrais, humor, which gives us psychological air to come up and then go down. It was also based on metaphor. And it was just so like, oh my goodness, metaphor is a language we all have, but don't have access to it because we haven't learned it.
Mm.
And there's millions of metaphors out there, as I have researched over the past 25 years.
Yeah.
The thing is how do they apply to me?
Mm-hmm.
When I really stop and I'm aware of what's happening in my body, oh, what's the metaphor for that? And how can that we go deeper and then be guided by that?
Yeah. Ooh, getting goosebumps. No, I love that. I
Mm-hmm.
think one more question that I have is for those of them listening that are licensed psychologists, counselors, and social workers that are interested, what are some of the results you're seeing from others who have taken the certificate
Mm,
course?
mm.
What are they?
The results I'm seeing is that their clients are moving through and beyond their grief faster. This works faster than talk therapy alone.
Yeah.
And that makes sense because what we're doing is we're just bringing in the entire whole. The licensed professional is wired differently. They have other awarenesses too. And so that's why I really, really have stayed in this field as long as I have. I could have easily retired with a thriving private practice. And it was such that, no, I languished, as I said earlier, in grief for years. I wrote about it in my messy, messy book, the memoir over there. And yet, what I know is it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
It is a grueling process. It is not linear. Grief will be with us forever. However, what I've noticed is the duration, the frequency, and the intensity of the grief ambushes decrease over time.
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
No, I think that's powerful. And anybody who has been through any kind of loss or grief will 100% agree with that.
Absolutely. And so, therapists are going to have people come in who have been divorced, and nobody's realizing the impact of that divorce on them, let
Yeah.
alone their children. And so and we go through the 6 deadly Ds in the program, which list so many different kinds of losses that people might have.
Yep. Yeah.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
think that's unique as well, is that it doesn't just deal with death. It deals with
No.
different kinds of losses as well, because you do feel that so deeply, and a lot of times we ignore it, I think, which is what causes the issues in the first
Yes.
place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, we're grief phobic, and we're also a grief illiterate culture. Now, that's changed a lot since COVID. I was so relieved to see all these blogs and new Facebook groups when COVID came.
Yeah.
It was absolutely wonderful. And there's many, many, many resources out there for people grieving. What I know is you can't think your way through grief because it lives in the body. And that's the beauty of this program. And I want all of those listening to know that I'm interviewing a business partner through those people in the Rubenfeld Synergy community who have been certified by Ilana, who practice, have had a thriving private practice, added this to their practice. And so that person will be joining us for training. That person will be then there as a resource to the licensed people. Because I am an MA, I'm a certified Rubenfeld synergist. I am a spiritual practitioner. I don't have the right letters after my name. However, this 25 years of experience and my lived personal experience allow this program to come into being and then be supported by those people who have the credentials that mesh with the people who say, sign me up for training.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. So that's it,
And you're not broken by loss.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. So one of the things that happened is the new paradigm of grief came through.
Yeah.
And it's had many iterations, as you know, because you've changed them on the website, Jessica. But right now, after I presented at the American Association of Suicidology, I realized the language needed to be softened. So I softened it too. You may not be broken by this loss. You may be broken open like a seed to root down in self-awareness and grow in new connections.
I love that.
I do too. I really, really do, because that's what we're all here to do. We're all loving. We don't know it. We don't feel it sometimes. And yet we're here to expand and be as big and much as we can possibly be.
And still feel stable with our roots rooted down. I
Yes.
think that's such an
Yes.
important piece of that. I think that's a great visualization and an important note of
Mm-hmm.
not only are you growing, but you're also expanding those roots and
Mm-hmm.
learning. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Becoming
So,
steadier in yourself.
yes. Yes, absolutely. Because grief shatters.
Yeah.
And you have life before the loss and you have life after the loss. And so we, in the program, we talk about navigating the ocean of emotion. Grief brings up the deepest, darkest parts of ourselves, longing to be heard and healed. And therapists know all about that. And then finally, exploring the question, who am I now? And it's an exploration so people don't feel the pressure of, I've got to know, or is it possible? No, no. There's much, much grace and self-compassion in the program for the licensed professionals as well as the people who are their clients. Mm-hmm.
That's so great.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the intro that you have for your interview series
Yes.
for the
Mm-hmm.
licensed professionals and those that they serve.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I've always had that vision for this podcast. And
Yep.
because there's a million things out there that people can listen to. I'm very aware of that. But the intention is tips and tools that can be a guide.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think it supplements the certification program well also.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Anything else that comes to mind as we've had this conversation this morning?
I think maybe we haven't touched on what timeline of the commitment that they would be making for the certification program.
Oh, sure, sure. So my intention is that we start September the 8th, which that will be 4 weeks in September, 4 weeks in October, 4 weeks in November. So we finish actually the Monday before Thanksgiving, which is wonderful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For this particular go round.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And how did you land on 12 weeks?
I'm in a marvelous coaching program called Thrive. And so they said, don't do weeks, do months. And I realized that what I really wanted to do is expand it. So our initial time together was orientation. It was orientation for us to get to know one another. It will be orientation for the licensed PhD to introduce themselves and tell about their background and have a dialogue. And then at that time, that's when we'll go over the grief awareness assessment. So people begin to see the power in it and then can go back and apply. And you've created such a wonderful, simplistic way for people to do this, because it's modules and it's tools to download. And once a week, then, when I said, you said, what commitment do people need to make? Show up. 90 minutes every week. Show up. And we will then go through what worked, what didn't work, what questions you have. You can practice the processes with one another after I've demonstrated them with others. And so that you're prepared, because this is new. And you're, as that person who is the licensed professional, will be going through transformations yourself.
Yeah.
You'll be noticing things. And so that's an opportunity then for us to talk about it there.
Yeah.
Yes. So
I'm excited for everybody to join. It's phenomenal.
Oh, thank you so much. And I want you all to know, as our time together comes to a close, that Jessica is a podcaster herself. And so what's the name of your podcast?
Driven Moms Answering Adversity, Stories of Success Through Setbacks.
Okay. And what we'll have then in the show notes today is we'll have information about Jessica and her podcast and ways to connect with her. So, yeah. So thank you.
I appreciate that.
I hope you learned something new today.
I did. I hope everybody else did. I definitely did. I think this is fast. I could talk to you all day about what you do.
Well, is there a question you have or anything more?
No, I don't. I think the main thing, I think it's really great that it goes not only from the professionals, but for who they serve, because I think it's really important for them to know that it is probably something they are going to go through as well. Like, it is not just something you're learning to transfer skills to your clients. It's something they're going to learn that they'll be able to use for themselves as well.
Right.
I really think that's unique and powerful. And I don't know if they can tell. I can tell based on being around you, but it is a really soothing and safe space. Like, if you make it very safe to be open, to be honest, and to go through all of that. And I don't think a lot of people have that unique ability to just be soothing by nature. So I think that's a really great thing for them to be around and maybe emulate even a little bit, soak up some of that deepness. I think it's you call it deep because you always say deep grief or take deep care, or so it's very deep and rooted. So I think that's great.
Well, Jessica, this has been wonderful. Thank you for the gift of your time. I'm so grateful for your questions and your insights. There have been so many. So that's been just wonderful. So thank you.